I unironically wish we'd watched She-Hulk instead.
It is funny that we've reached a point now where we're so bored that honestly, watching something horribly bad could be almost entertaining alone because at least there'd be something to talk about of interest, wouldn't there?
At least I have grown to understand George R.R. Martin, the cake that walks, more throughout this show. I understand now why there are random bouts of violence, like Diversity Hire 2 getting randomly beheaded, because frankly, it's the only interesting thing that goddamn happened. Oh, that was a long hour. That was a very long hour.
Yeah.
Again,
That's all there is to say about it.
oh my god. Maybe it's simply because I haven't read this book. Maybe if I'd read the book, I'd be far more like in depth with this. But the episode begins with a 6-year time skip. I am so far beyond caring at this point. Like, we have spent far more time in time skips than we have done in the actual television show at this point. Like, okay, all of the children are now adults, alright. One-eyed blonde child is like, I'm one-eyed and blonde, which is cool, I guess, and he has remarkable depth perception for a, one-eyed cripple, because he can fight a King's Guardsman, and win, so, good job there.
I mean, that's true. That is, ridiculous, actually.
We have Diversity Hire 2, who has up until this point been nothing more than a side character. I don't even know his name. He's claiming to be the Lord of Driftmark now, and he's, his brother and heir and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, are you?
Also, it seems like the House Lord of Driftmark just sort of died off screen. Now, we don't know for certain, but he's certainly not present in this episode, and that's why there's a succession crisis.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing too. Lord Corlys apparently wandered off to the Stepstones, which they're settling now 6 years later, and there's still war over there. And Corlys Velaryon has been stabbed and is dying from poison, or well, sickness more correctly, off screen. It's like, okay, right. The way I kind of try to explain it. So, a good story is like a good rope or a good thread, right? You have tons of different little strands, little storylines, little characters, little histories, all weaving together to create a greater whole. The story bits become far more interesting because of the other bits. They become stronger, more united. But the thing is, to achieve this, you've got to actually make this rope. You've got to intertwine all of these points of the story. And it's just not happening here. Instead, we keep seeing the end of the rope again and again and again. We are shown the result of war. Like, there's been a war in the Stepstones that's been going on for 6 years, and Corlys Velaryon has been wounded. That is the result. We see nothing of this war. Like, one-eyed blonde boy is now a big-ass, strong, fuck-off warrior guy who can kick King's Guards' asses. We don't see that. We see the result of it. Or, well, at least with him, we saw him kind of conquering the dragon, right? That's something. But now the entire realm is in a secession crisis. And yeah, we've only seen the barest elements of this.
Yep, what we've been saying pretty much every episode, I think.
It's really annoying because there is a story here. I feel like, okay, maybe maybe the show will really start kicking off in season 2. I'll be optimistic here. Maybe once all of the characters are established and like maybe the main characters are actually the children, because fuck, they've got almost more character building than everybody else. Like, I understand why the children hate each other's guts now, because the both sets of children, both Rayamon's and Hightower's children, have been raised in an atmosphere of constant paranoia over the other group of children, right? Hightower's children, there was a scene with Queen Hightower basically saying, like, don't you understand? If Rayamon becomes queen, she'll kill you all because you're a threat to her child. And at the same time, Rayamon is telling her children the exact same thing, as they're on the threat of, being bastards and being humiliated, and of course the mental anguish of knowing as well that they are bastards and having to be protected by the realm, etc. I get why these children would have such a strained relationship, so maybe that's what they're building up for, but it's like, God, this season will be 11 hours long at the end of it. 11 hours.
Like, the problem is none of it, like, you really get attached to anything. Yeah, characters coming and going. Like, we got this random black dude that shows up and then he dies. And he's been in here before. He complained about Daemon, or whatever the fuck his name was, because he was one of the guys who complained about, like, we can't care, blah blah. Like, I don't care about him, so I feel nothing when he dies. When he's dead, whatever. Like, I get it. Shock scene for the sake of shock scene. Are you happy? Yeah. Checkbox. Like, it's nothing out of the ordinary. Random ass shot of random prince dude raped a girl. Okay, whatever.
Because of course, her side of the family is also Hightower's side of the family is awful. Like, Rayamon's side of the family is weak. And the worst part too is, like, I actually didn't mind Diversity Hire too, because he did a pretty good job. Like, for the time he was hiccup on screen, he was fairly charismatic. Minutes. He delivered a fiery speech. I do like how we've finally arrived at the race realist position here, where he's pointing towards the white as the driven snow child and going, "That's no relation of mine," which is true. And then he has his head chopped off, and you're like,
The topic.
It's just
I don't know.
Again, it's a slow boil doesn't cover it. It's just, man.
Slow boil. We have time skips. Like, the only thing I think I cared about this entire episode was the king. Everything else was boring. Like, I just sort of started tuning out half the time, because it's like, there's no reason to get attached if we're just gonna skip again and, like, move past any sort of actual development. This is literally like what you talked about earlier. They're only doing the plot chunks, is what they're covering. They're not covering the threads or anything that you tethered these story elements together. This is like a rough outline of a storyboard with no refinement whatsoever, and it's hard to get invested or care because it feels like we're reading literal cliff notes. It's like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. It's like, okay, but like, can we see the result of these things, like, immediately, or like, can we see, like, the slow buildup of these character relations? I don't know, maybe the prince with the one eye, maybe we can see him grow as a character because of the loss of his eye and how he became strong. He's driven now, he wants revenge. Because clearly revenge is a motive for him. But no, we don't see any of that. You know what we see? We just see time skip. And
now he's
this
strong.
show's just like, he's strong, he's tough, he can outperform the, like, experienced, well-trained guards and knights. And he's super powerful, and it feels like this. He's only powerful because the show says he's powerful, not because it showed us per se, but merely because it sort of told us. It's like, he's powerful now. It's like, okay, he's powerful now. I don't care, but all right.
And again, the king. Okay, the king. I don't mind the king. He feels like, God damn it, the fucking. So, Rayamon is yet again in trouble. Rayamon is gonna do nothing to get herself out of this trouble. Rayamon is not gonna achieve anything. Rayamon's not gonna do anything. Rayamon is going to whine to Daddy, and Daddy is going to save Rayamon again. the king's entire character has just been one long series of rescuing Raymond. That's pretty much been his character. And in part, I value him for this because he says, like, okay, no, you're my heir now. Like, I'll stand by you no matter what. And he does. Like, the king is probably one of the more honorable individuals in the series, but like, he's been dying for episode after episode after episode now. I'm just kind of sick of it.
Yeah, because his ailment goes up. Like, I could have sworn he would have been dead years ago. Like, he didn't have a year.
Like, he collapsed at the end of a couple of episodes ago, and it was like, he's dead now. Like, now we're 7 years later, and he's now finally, maybe he died. I don't know.
Who knows? More importantly, who fucking cares? It's too little, too late now.
Like, I feel like this could have been done in a very different way, and probably a better way as well. Because I don't know if it is a symptom of the modern day, like, Netflixian age, kinda. You know, where you make these shows almost with the expectation that people will binge all of it in like a day and get the entire story in like a day or something. And that's why it's paced so goddamn glacially. But like maybe bring this back to for example, recently a show that everyone's probably watched, Cyberpunk Edgerunner, right? It's 10 episodes, I think, of 25 minutes each. So that's a 3-hour show roundabout. Over the course of that 3-hour shows, we have the rise and fall, the entire character arcs of half a dozen characters. We see their motivations, their reasons for existing, their reason for doing what they do. We see why they're pushing themselves. We see these characters rise. We see these characters falls. We see their deaths, their tragedies, their motivations. We see characters fall in love. We see characters fall out of love. We see characters struggle with their emotions over this. And all of this is done in 3 hours. Meanwhile, over the course of 8 hours now, the only character I've kind of attached myself to is the king, who's been dying for the near entirety of it, and my only connection to him is because at least he keeps his word.
And at least he's trying, and everyone else is just being annoying. Like, this is something we talked about while watching it. I'm really bored of the dysfunctional drama family. Like, this is some drama show for, I don't know, fucking preteens or something. Of like, oh, you fucked this person, I can't believe it. It's like some high school drama, and I don't care. Like, it's just boring, it's childish.
And it's also, like, I feel like the performances are lacking too, because, again, I can see the strands here, okay? So you've got Hightower and you've got Raymond, and both of them live in this paranoid reality where they're always at the brink with one another, they're constantly competing, but we don't see any goddamn of it. We're just told about it again. So, like, what's happening here is Queen Hightower is trying to get Diversity Hire 2 to take the place of corlys Velaryon, because corlys Velaryon is wounded. If she does this, she will gain a tremendous ally in Driftmark. Basically, she'll gain the realm's strongest fleet, and they talk briefly about how they're earning a lot of money from the Driftstorms, etc. Alright. Meanwhile, Raymond realizes that if this happens, her own child loses the claim to Driftmark, and it is also a way to basically show that he's a bastard, because he doesn't have the right to inherit, etc. Okay, that makes sense, but that plot point, that entire build-up, that entire political intrigue was introduced in this episode through talking alone. None of this is shown. Like, the political landscape is not laid out. It's the same with Raymond, right? Everybody keeps saying, oh, Raymond, she's a woman queen. She can never rule. She's dividing the realm. We don't see this. Like, where are the shadowy factions moving against her? Why aren't people rallying around Lady Hightower then? Why aren't people rallying... Like, what is happening in the rest of the realm? Are people rallying around the Hightowers? Like, what is everybody else's view? God damn it.
It's kind of annoying because we don't really get to see any of it.
There's so much focus on, like, the dysfunctional family drama, and it's trite. And again, if all of this is basically 11 hours of build-up for a season 2, where the children will become the main characters, then maybe I'll look back at this and view it in a better light. But man, it's so much and so little at the same time. I feel
well, it's like a wide lake, but it's shallow. That's the problem. It has no depth. At least the show's not capturing the depth of that alleged book that's apparently good or whatever.
Not to mention too, like, the whole Otto Hightower thing. Like, again, he was fired specifically for putting his own ambitions ahead of those of the crown. And here he is, again, putting his own ambitions ahead of those of the crown.
Yeah, so they assassinate that one dude who's literally put to be the hand of the king, right?
Fat Expedition Man, yes.
Yeah, Fat Exposition Man who smiles and looked at the screen and waddled up to there. It's like, Exposition time. But the thing is, my biggest problem with that is they kill him off, and the fact that he's like, oh, well, instead of picking anyone else, I'm going to pick the only person who would benefit from this, which would be the Hightower guys. I'm going to pick him, despite knowing all these things. So it's one of those things, like, they do it because they need drama, and it's hard to justify how the Queen could have that much influence without him. So it's very contrived, because it has to be contrived.
And again, we are skipping so many ingredients. Like, okay, maybe there's a compelling reason for why the king doesn't care that Otto is serving his own intrigues for some reason. And okay, there was another thing too, in that a lot of the Targaryen iconography, a lot of the dragons have been replaced with symbols of the Seven and the Church, etc. And again, you're just told this, like Raemon addresses Hightower Lady, or it's like, oh, why did you, change the interior decor? It's maybe a 2-minute conversation. Like, that's a very big deal, actually. Like, that is a tectonic shift within society. Like, the royal iconography of the royal family has been exchanged throughout the entirety of the royal castle with symbols of the church, even as the queen, too, is wearing the symbol of the church around her neck. Like, this is an enormous shift in power that just kind of happened off screen, and nobody really addresses it.
She says a line like, oh, I don't feel like I'm home, and then she's later than Raymond then says, why have you done this? And the other queen's like, because, and then they sort of like move past it, and that was it. We got 2 references about it, and then it's never talked about again.
It's like, again, so many things that are really big and sounds cool are happening, and we don't get to see any of it. Like, apparently there's a war on the Stepstones again. I'd like to see that. I would love to see that. Like, again, why is a Queen Hightower now, joining up with the church? That kind of feeds back to what I said previously. What is the rest of the realm actually thinking? Like, is the church against Raemon? Why? Why is the church against Raemon? Has the queen promised them something? Like, is the change in the iconography a result of that promise? I feel like I'm going over the same point again and again, because it's the point that I keep getting annoyed about. So many of these things are happening, and yet informed of any of it. Like, it's not delivered in a satisfying or interesting manner. I don't feel like I'm part of the story as it skips another 6 years ahead.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning of this episode, like when we were watching it, when we heard the 6-hour time skip, we both just collectively fucking sighed. Because it's like, it's really hard to get attachment already with the time skips that have happened. And after that, hearing that 6-year time skip, it's like one of those things like I don't care. Like, the thing is just moving on. The story doesn't care about me, so I don't care about the story.
Pretty much. And
so why bother?
Again, it does not need all of this. It doesn't. Like, there's one scene where Raymond and Daemon go and visit their father because he's sick still, and he's very ailing, and he's turning into a goddamn skeleton and shit, which is probably some reference to the, Night Walkers or something, right? And he has a little bit of a rant to them, talks to them for a bit. This scene lasts for, I think, about, 6 or 7 minutes. It's a long scene. And all it really exists to do is tell you King ill and getting drugged. That is it. Like, this could have been a 2-minute scene. There's another scene where one of Hightower's bastards, or children, has raped a maid. Because, that's just what you do. And the queen needs to blackmail her into shutting up so as to not ruin the prince's reputation. That's another 5-minute scene. That could have been skipped entirely. Like, in part, I get it, because there's a little tear in the queen's eyes, as if, she's been doing this a lot, and she's kind of realizing that she's become the bad woman here. Like, oh, now I'm bribing people to overlook their rape. Like, wasn't I whining about being sold for political gains earlier? But it's like, we already know. We already know her children are shit. We already know they're probably promiscuous little bastards. Like, it's just like, all of the story could be told a lot better, and it focuses on these things where they could be focusing on the political intrigue. It could be focusing on the war. It could be focusing on the broader strokes to actually make me give a shit again. Familial goddamn drama. I would honestly like to watch a TV show where there's a royal family who just gets along for once. Unironically.
They have issues or disagreements, or maybe there's some unresolved business, that needs to be taken care of. But the fact that it's like, I want to murder you type of drama is the stuff that bores me. It's the point when I tune out, it's like, okay, whatever. Like, we've got such an oversaturation of this, like, where it's gotta be, cranked up to 11 because people are too stupid to think about anything remotely complex. They gotta be at each other's throat and wanting to kill each other 24/7. If they're not, the audience is too dumb to know any better. It's boring. I don't care. I'm sick of this crap.
Yep. It's god damn it. This is one of those shows that will probably be remembered fairly positively. And it'll be one of those shows that I just won't understand why people like. Straight up.
Yeah, well, I think we talked to our friend Dev, and it really, I think it boils down to people are so, like, starved for any content that even, like, shit tastes good now.
I mean, again,
considering Rings of Power and everything else.
That is we've brought up that point previously, and I do believe there is an element of truth in this, because the Rings of Power, most of the Rings of Power episodes were merely boring, were merely uninteresting. There was the occasional insult to Tolkien here and there, but it was mostly just garbage. And then episode 7 dropped, and it was some of the worst television I have ever actually seen. Which, like, House of the Dragon will probably look a lot better in comparison.
Yeah, for a while there, for about 7 episodes, House of the Dragons was the thing we were least looking forward to. Rings of Power has finally dethroned it, but at the end of the day, this is still left with a mediocre show. which feels less than a mediocre show. Feels kind of like a somewhat kind of bad show, a very rushed show.
I just think it's badly written. It is poorly written, and it fails to capture the scale and intrigue of what's going on. And again, if again by season 2 the children basically become the main characters, because the children seem to be the ones built up the most, which is ridiculous considering their build-up is barely existence as well, then maybe I'll think better of it. But it could have been done so much better. Like, you can tell a good story in a lot less time than 11 hours.
Yeah.
House of the Dragons. I just don't get it.